Welcome to the Jim McLean lesson. Today I'm going to talk to you about the slot, or the slot swing. I think everyone has heard about getting in the slot or hitting the slot. Well, what is it? What is the slot? And, you know, I've thought a lot about this, started to think more about it because everyone would talk about this concept or this idea. So I started writing about the slot. And it came to me that there are three basic ways to hit the slot, three swing shapes. And as I continued to write, it ended up becoming a book called The Slot Swing. And I talk about the three ways to slot your swing. So let's first talk about what the slot is. The slot is the channel that your club head is coming down on the correct arc to hit the ball solid and far and strong and effortlessly. It's a wonderful feeling when you're in the slot. So the basic way that people have thought about a slot swing is dropping into a slot, and that would be more like Lee Trevino or Sergio Garcia or Ryan Moore, Miller Barber, Johnny Miller. A lot of people would let the club fall into the slot, and it's actually the way we teach a lot of people at the golf school to get the club a little more up or out, maybe in front of you on the backswing, get the club more vertical going back because it feels light going back like this, and then from here allowing the club shaft to fall down. So the club falls into the slot. Now, players like Hogan and Byron Nelson also use this kind of move where the shaft would lay down and come correctly down into this delivery position, which would be right on line, and then into hitting the golf ball. So big slot swingers like Jim Furyk would take the club way up and then have a very noticeable drop. Also Calvin Peete, who was one of the really great ball strikers through the 1980s. Unbelievable straight ball striker. He had the club this way on his backswing and then let it fall back down. So we have a lot of people going over the top, and when you're going over the top and steepening the shaft, you've got no chance. In fact, one of the death moves that I use in my teaching that's in the new building block approach, I really detail this in the new DVD series, the building block approach. I talk about the shaft steepening. I call it tip over, where the club gets steep on top of the ball and you're dead here. You've got no chance. You've got to somehow try to back out, but almost always you'll jack across the golf ball and not even come close to hitting the slot. So back to our correction for this. Once somebody's doing this big tip over swing, which a lot of folks do, I have them make a little figure eight swing. It's kind of like it goes up and down this way and out and back around. So it's kind of making a little figure eight this way and around. And so that's the idea of a loop. But it's not so much the loop with the hands and arms, it's really the loop of the club head. And this is what a lot of people miss. When they come down, the club works this way. It lays down, similar to a baseball bat. When you teach a young boy or girl in Little League Baseball to hold the bat up, the pitch comes in, they step, the bat falls down level, and they swing and hit the ball. So that's a major fall down right there. Now that's a great way for people to look at the shaft falling back. What you don't want to have happen, though, is for you to take your arms up here and then pull your arms back to the inside, because now you get blocked and trapped from the inside. So we're really talking about the shaft and the club head falling down on plane to this position halfway down. That's the slot. Now when you get this idea here, you get kind of a flow swing. And one thing I've seen characteristic of the slot swingers are they're very relaxed setups. They're not stiff and rigid. Furyk is very relaxed over the ball. Calvin Peete was that way. Basically all the guys we're talking about, Trevino, they would take the club up and drop it to the inside. So I'm just going to hit a shot or two here for you and show you what that major slot swing looks like. I'll exaggerate it a little bit and drop it in. And you get a nice little flow with that swing. Out and in. So if I was going to aim at the white line right there, I might aim a little left and then slot it and hit it to the right of the net, of the line down the center right here, so I can get that club to fall in. It's a great way to teach people who are looping the shaft and the club head over top of the plane. But see, this is just the beginning of my work on the slot swing book, because I also realize that there are players who are trying to swing the club right up and down the same channels. For example, just putting it in the slot to begin with and then just keeping it there. Now, some people would refer to that as a one-plane swing. In the one-plane swing that Jim Hardy wrote, and it was a very popular book, he talked more about where the left arm went parallel to the shoulder. So he wasn't really talking about the shaft. Most teachers are thinking about where the shaft is as far as slotting the club. So when I'm talking about a one-plane swing, I'm talking about bringing the shaft and the club head up that channel and right down that channel. And I think that's what Tiger Woods really has tried hard to do in the last 5 or 6 years, right up and down the same path and then right back up, a perfect circle all the way around. And this, by the way, is a really good concept for a lot of people that we teach, for them to think of a circle that goes around their body and actually thinking of a one plane swing. It's a really great concept. So we use that when we teach as well. Besides the actual loop of the shaft or the club head to the inside, oftentimes we'll tell people about this one plane idea, which is a neat swing thought for a lot of players. When it comes right down to doing it perfect, though, it's a pretty difficult thing to do. I haven't seen hardly any players ever in my life do it, a perfect up and down swing. Lee Trevino told me in a conversation I had with him, where I've talked to Lee many times, he thought if you had a little move in your swing, it was easier to repeat. And I kind of agree with him. Plus, that you're really not going right up and down the same plane anyway, because the backswing arc is always wider than the downswing arc, which is always narrower. There's a lateral move, the club comes in closer to you, and you're narrower on the way down. So the idea of perfection actually sounds great and can be a really neat idea for teaching people, but it's very hard to execute. Now, the third way of swinging the club, or the third swing shape, is an in to over swing. And it looks like this, where the club goes more inside on the backswing, where the arms go in, and then there's a little loop to the outside this way, but the club still gets in the same slot of the guy going this way and slots it here. The other guy goes here, or girl, and slots it this way. So that's a reverse slot. Now, this is a swing that is almost never taught. It's not talked about. But let me just review with you some of the players that do it. Bobby Jones, the great Bobby Jones, Sam Snead, Craig Stadler, Bruce Litsky, Hale Irwin, J.B. Holmes, and there are a lot more. Those are just right off the top of my head. A lot of guys and women would take the club to the inside and loop it this way. And what I realized from teaching my whole life is that when a young kid picks up a golf club, oftentimes this club's pretty heavy. So they kind of have to give it a little heave back, and they can get it going to the inside with a little earlier turn. They can get it in here, and then they can lift it up and swing it down. So to repeat that, the youngster naturally, with no teaching, tends to turn the club in behind them to build up a little momentum. Then they can get the club up, and then they bring it down. So it goes in and down. But they don't do this. and get the arms away. They don't get the club steep, this steep. What you see is the arms going in and the arms going out. So the arms are working this way. Actually, a lot of players move their arms, almost all players move their arms slightly that way in the golf swing. But I'm talking about a pretty significant move that you don't need a camera to see. That's what I call the reverse slot. And I talked about this with my old friend Jackie Burke, who always has an interesting way of looking at things. And he said, well, you know, that's kind of like a sledgehammer. And the more I thought about that, you think about some of the younger people have never even swung a sledgehammer, might not even know what a sledgehammer is. But for example, way back they would use the sledgehammer to drive the stakes into the railroad track. So they'd hit that spike, and there would be a spike in there. They'd take the sledgehammer in, and bam. So this is a sledgehammer move. You can see it from back there. In and bam. You'd hit that spot, bam, right on top of it. Interestingly, they never missed. Now, since that time, we've had the chance to film some guys working on crews, working on homes, hitting different things with a sledgehammer, and they don't miss. They hit it every time. So it struck me if it was simpler to take the sledgehammer for a big, strong guy, straight up and straight down, you would think somebody would do it, but they don't. They all have a loop, and it's the in and over loop. Then I started thinking about Stadler and Litsky and Irwin and guys who have a noticeable loop, Sam Snead. All of them are super low maintenance swings. They don't practice. And by that I mean, yeah, they hit balls when they were a kid, they played a lot, but they're guys that don't hit many practice balls. It doesn't take, I think they feel like it's almost just a waste of time because it's just such a simple thing for them to do. Once they're sliding the club with the in and over move, it's such a natural little kid's move. It's easy to do, but it is never taught. Almost. I don't see anybody teaching an over swing. However, if you see a young person doing this and hitting the ball great, you gotta be real careful about taking that away. You might have a young Sam Snead, a young Bobby Jones, a young Bruce Litsky, a young Craig Stadler in your midst. There's somebody who can really hit the ball. It's a very natural way to slot the club. So as we review this, 3 swing shapes. Sometimes you think about 1 plane, 2 plane swings. Nobody ever has talked about the 3 basic swing shapes. So they are taking the club out and then looping it back to the inside. So it's this motion. Then you have the perfect swing, to me, the slotting it back and down and back out. So it's just a perfect circle. And then you have the reverse slot. And that's taking the club, dragging it a little more to the inside on the backswing and looping it back on the slot. So if you see how that works though, boom, it's still right back in this position. Boom. And that's a very natural way of doing it. But what we're really talking about is getting this golf club and our hands in the slot. So whichever way you do it, you want to get your body and the golf club in position to smash the golf ball. And you do that by slotting the golf club. Now, how would you practice doing that? Well, to do it, you do it in small versions. If you want to do a little swing like this, you do small swings to loop it to the inside. You can also do straight back, straight through. And if you're going inside, make sure you're not going this way. If you go inside, just put a little loop, but keep the club head behind the hands when you start down. So you want to get that club coming on the right track, which is right down the swing plane, on the right angle of approach. So you're taking just the right amount of turf, a small flat divot when you hit the golf ball, and that's what you're looking for when you slot the golf club.